This podcast is brought to you by lilybadcock.com and the Confidence Academy, giving you the confidence to be who you truly are. This is the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach, and I'm here with a message for you. The anxiety and overwhelm you've been experiencing is not something to be feared or avoided. It's also not something that gets to define who you are as a person. No matter who you are, no matter what your story is, I know that you get to live a life of fulfillment and joy. It's my absolute pleasure to bring this podcast series to you in collaboration with some phenomenal people from all over the world who have walked the same path as you. Together, we will share our stories, our challenges, and our triumphs, with the intention of helping you to see that it's possible for you too. Anxiety may be something you live with, but it doesn't get to define who you are or how you live your life. So stand by for some powerful conversations, deep realizations, and the occasional F-bomb. So get those headphones in if you're around sensitive ears, and stand by. This is going to be fun. Hey, welcome back to the show. This week I chatted to executive coach and founder of the Luxurious Experience Academy, Stephanie Coradin. I was really excited to get Stephanie on the show this week because, as well as experiencing anxiety on a personal level, she's also trained as a therapist in the areas of anxiety management and mindset shifting. So for those of you listening who find the woo-woo stuff a little hard to get your heads around, you're going to absolutely love this episode. I think it's so important to get a balanced view around how we view mental health and also the steps that we take to combat it. And personally, I find support and inspiration from both the spiritual aspects, but also the scientific. And so it's that balance that I aim to bring you with this show. As always, I'd love to hear your comments and questions around this episode, so do please reach out to me using the links in the show notes. And don't forget, you can join me live every Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. But for now, sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to the Confidence Academy podcast with Lily Badcock. And today I'm joined by Stephanie Coradin, who owns the Luxurious Experience Academy. And Stephanie, I am thrilled to have you on the show. A massive warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Lily.
I'm so happy to have you. And I always think it's so funny when I have to do these introductions, because obviously we've just been chatting for about 5 minutes before we went live.
Right.
then we have to pretend like we haven't been doing that, but everyone knows what's up. It's all good. So thank you so much for giving me your time, or giving us your time today. I would love you to tell the beautiful people of this podcast who you are and what you do.
Sure. Again, my name is Stephanie Coradin, and as I said, thank you so much, Lily, for having me on. I am an executive coach. I focus on anxiety management and mindset shifting. I also do leadership training in corporate, and that also focuses on emotional intelligence and emotional leadership, circling around anxiety in the workplace and mindset in the workplace as well.
So important. And so I would love to kick off by asking you, well, first of all, what got you into that? Because obviously I teach about anxiety because that was my experience. And I know that a lot of people on this podcast have found their way into their work because they suffered with it first. So was that the case for you?
Yes, that was certainly my experience. I started having panic attacks when I was about 13. And it was just something that came on. I didn't even know what it was at first. My mom thought it was like acid reflux or something, because I would get nauseous and feel like I want to throw up and so on and so forth. And the second part of that is from my teenage years, I guess I should say, people would always come to me with their issues. I would be sitting next to somebody at the doctor's office in my 20s, and they would just start telling me stuff that, like, oh, well, why are you even telling me this? And that led me into counseling. That was my first opening into being a counselor. So I went to school for counseling, got licensed as a mental health counselor inside, and I did a stint inside of an eating disorder facility. And even though I was there to help women between the ages of 14 and 25 with eating disorder, I found that most of their eating disorders came from trauma and anxiety. And that's where everything stemmed from. I didn't stay fully into the counseling because it was just too boxed in, and I felt like I couldn't help people in the ways that I wanted to. So that's why I branched out into coaching.
Yeah, amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm excited to have somebody on who's had the training in mental health and anxiety, because I've had a lot of people on here who are like me, have
Mm-hmm.
had their own experiences and have then forged a path that is their own, which is an
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing to be able to do. And I'm so grateful that I get to do that. But I'm so interested to dig into your brain to get
Yes,
your
of
take,
course.
because I know what I think about anxiety, and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is something I was diagnosed with. I was diagnosed in 2013. Mine seemed to stem from after I had my second child, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually think it was probably present after my first, because my two boys are very close together.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought it was not post-traumatic stress. I
Postpartum.
thought
Postpartum.
postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression. It was ticking a lot of those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to know what your take is on where anxiety comes from. And I know it's different for everybody, but what's your
Mm-hmm.
general view of anxiety? What is it that kind of, obviously there are people that just seem to be anxious from a very
Mm-hmm.
early age,
Mm-hmm.
but for a lot of people it is something that materializes. So I'm really interested to know what's your take on what anxiety is. Where does it come from, first off?
Sure, sure. So the school, the therapy school, will tell you that anxiety usually stems from it's triggered by an event or by an action, something
Mm,
that may have happened to somebody at a very young age, as you said, and they might have like shut it up, bottled it up, or blocked it out.
mm,
And then later on in life, something similar happens again, or they might have seen something happen, like not to
mm,
them, but to somebody else, and it triggers that
mm,
memory from their
mm,
subconscious. And sometimes it triggers the memory, but they don't even realize that it's triggered. And the
mm,
only thing that comes out of it is the worry and the anxiousness. And like you said, on the flip side of that, some people are naturally in, anxious and
mm,
naturally just worrisome. And I think that was my case. Like I
mm,
said, my anxiety started when I was 13, and
mm,
I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I was just naturally a anxious person. Like I
mm,
worry about everything, and till this day I manage it very well now, thank God, but it still
mm,
comes up. Um,
mm,
and the what I wanted to make sure I said on the therapy school part of it is that a lot of times anxiety is triggered by a very, very traumatic event that the person is hiding. They
mhm,
remember it, but they don't want to talk about it, or
mm,
either they're too embarrassed, or they feel like they're threatened or something like that. And that's where everything just bubbles up for them, because if you touch them too much, they jump, because they're
mm,
holding this inside of them. And that's the important part of it. And workplace anxiety is a lot like that, because there's like leaders that are bullies,
mm,
and they're afraid to lose their job and stuff like that. So it stems from a very traumatic event.
mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, my mind fires in all the directions because
Yeah.
I've got my own experience with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there are people obviously that I know, there's people I've worked with, but there's people I know
Mm-hmm.
personally as well. And I think, yeah, there's definitely that anxiety that you get when something traumatic happens, and we're in our adult life, we can
Mm-hmm.
sort of understand it. And even though it
Mm-hmm.
sucks, we can kind of understand it. But I know there are so many people for whom it seems to come from nowhere. And this was definitely my experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think, but I think perception plays an enormous part
Oh, yes.
in the anxiety, because
Mm-hmm.
on my side, um, when I started digging into what it could be or what it could have come
Mm-hmm.
from, my perception of it, my kind of top layer perception of it was, oh, it's no big deal, because that's kind of the person I am. You know, you could literally have me in a burning building and I'd be like, I'll be all right.
It'll be good. It'll be good.
Sure we'll be all right. Yeah, we'll just crack on. It's fine. You know, I'm sure that'll be fine. And I think that's kind of a great way to be, but also it is that, it's almost that knee-jerk reaction of just stuffing down how we're really feeling.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel like that, or it's a burden to feel like that.
Exactly.
Or, you know, so I think, you know, and obviously you're speaking about workplace anxiety, and as you were talking, I was immediately just thinking of my own experiences. And I used to work, I suppose you would call it corporate. I've never classed it as corporate, but I was in a big organization with like floors of people, which I suppose is what corporate is. And and before I was in that job, I worked for a really nasty boss. And he literally would make me physically shake at my desk. His office was upstairs and we were all downstairs. It was a very small office environment. He had a horrible temper, and if something went wrong, you could hear him scrape his chair back in his office.
Oh my gosh.
And you could hear him coming, and like and everyone would like bristle themselves, and you would just sit there going, oh my God, which one of us is it? Because you knew someone was about to get it and you didn't know who. And I worked there for a good couple of years, and you don't realize what you're going through. And I think trauma, you mentioned that word trauma. I think when people hear the word trauma, they think, oh, you know, that's someone who was, you know, abused as a child, or suffered a lot of loss, or they think of big things. But actually, something I've learned through doing this work actually is that trauma is anything that is shocking to you at the time.
Yes.
So, you know, even if now, with all of the knowledge that you've got of the world, or, you know, if something happened as a child and now you're an adult and you can just see, oh, well, that was no big deal. If it was traumatic to you at the time, it's trauma, right?
Yep. And it sticks. It sticks. Even though you think it's not a big deal anymore, in your subconscious mind, it's still there. And at any given moment, it could be triggered.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to the people that are listening? Because I know there are going to be a lot. To the people who are listening, who just seem to be stuck with their anxiety, who just seem like they're doing the counseling, the coaching, the therapy, you know, they're trying the med, they might be on the meds, they might be trying holistic approaches like EFT and yoga, but it's still there. What is it that you tell your clients, or what is your general belief around anxiety? Because I've interviewed some people that go, you can absolutely overcome it forever and it will never come back. And then that's how I feel as well. Okay, let's hear what you think.
So one thing, and I know you've heard it, I've said it a few times, and like on my Facebook page and everything, I always say anxiety management. I don't say curing it or anything like that. You can manage it, but you cannot, like, it's not something that's going to just poof and disappear, or you're going to poof and overcome it. There is, though, I think, a difference between being able to manage it and being stuck in it. I think there is a difference there. So to the first part of your question is the stuckness. I think people stay stuck even though they might be taking the right steps, but they're not going deep enough within themselves, even with a counselor or a coach. And it's not the counselor or coach's fault, and it's not the person's fault either. It just so happens that they're stuffing it down so far that they're not admitting exactly what it is that's causing their trauma. And that makes they stay stuck in that anxiety. And the second part of that is, I don't believe that you can overcome it 100%, although you can go, I think, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago, I did a Facebook post where I said, I haven't had an anxiety attack in like over a year. And then that day I felt it bubbling up only because I was so super busy all week long and I didn't take a break, and I wasn't grounding myself. So it just came from out of nowhere. And I know the signs now, so I can, managed to keep it down. But at that point, I was like, oh, look at this. I haven't had this happen to me in like a year and a half, but here it
Yeah.
is. So
Yeah.
what I say to that part is that there are tools. We have a bunch of tools, the awareness first and foremost, being self-aware is the most important tool that you can have to manage your anxiety. But I think some people trying to overcome it and trying to fight it make it worse on themselves.
Yes, that's what I was going to come back to. It was, that idea, that feeling stuck, I think, so often comes from, it's from that feeling of, I'm not a whole person all the time. I have this anxiety, I'm like, I can't be a happy human if I have this, and I know that was my perception when I got told that I had it. Instantly, I wanted rid of it. It was like, I don't want that. Like, that doesn't sound like anything fun. That's like, no thanks. Like, take it back. I'll have something else.
Back, please.
Yeah. What else you got in the bag? Like, that's really not going to work for me. And this was the thing, it was that for a while, I just had this, and I am a real doer. I'm a real like, oh, I've got this I'm dealing with, fab. Like, I know what I'm dealing with. Like, let me just find a way through it. And so I was feeling frustrated when I was trying things, and then it would come back again. And there was so much judgment and disappointment, and just this feeling of, oh, like it's here again. I can't move forward. I do think that the feeling stuck, anyone who's listening, I think if you feel stuck with your anxiety, it's because you haven't realized that it gets to be a beautiful part of you, and not something you need to be afraid of, not something that you need to get rid of. But at the same time, I think there's a difference between truly managing it and telling yourself that you're managing it, because I feel like I've been both of those as well. I feel like I very quickly felt like I was managing, just because I found a few things that worked for me, like yoga helped, and going for a walk helped, and so I felt like I was managing it. But there were definitely times it came back, and then I felt like, oh, I don't actually have control of this at all. Yeah.
But this is one thing too, as you say, there were a few things that worked for you. And I've had to go through, like, even when I was still doing patients and eating disorder patients, I had to work with them on this, because a lot of times we'll find these, I guess if you Google anxiety management or how to get rid of it, it'll tell you all these things to do, but they're all external, right? Yoga will work. It'll calm you down. Going for a walk will work. It'll help you clear your head. But before you even get there, you have to do the internal work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that part, and the part of the internal work is exactly what you were just saying, that you have to accept that this is going to be a part of you from here on out.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I just got goosebumps when you said that, because I think there's so much power in that. I think there's so much power in that. I know there are people listening, and there are people that listen to this podcast that I know personally, that I'm thinking of as I say this. I know there are people listening who wish that their thing wasn't their thing. There are people listening to this who wish that that wasn't their path, or that wasn't their burden or their cross to bear. And what I'm all about is, I mean, I'm going straight into the faith piece now, but I just feel like we're gifted our lives, and I feel like every facet of that is part of who you are. It's a part that, it's not that you have to put up and shut up, but if you can send love to every part of yourself, and even the bits that feel horrible, and have that acceptance, and have that level of just this is what I'm dealing with right now, it just makes it so much easier, because I had anxiety I thought it was anxiety came back this year, and then when I actually thought about it, I was like, well, actually it probably is a bit of anxiety, but also a massive dollop of grief. I lost one of my best friends in March, and
I'm sorry.
and this is the thing, and life is not the life we knew.
Yeah.
Nothing is the same. And so, grief can come in all forms and all layers. And I realized that's what I was dealing with. And as soon as I realized that's what it was, I very quickly was able to process the feelings without judgment, without feeling afraid, and without telling myself that, that's, I'm wrong for feeling that. But, my instinct, though, when it first came up was, oh God, it's back. So, and we tell ourselves, so you just mentioned like the inner work, the mindset, and I know this is a huge part of what you do. So it's these knee-jerk reactions that we get to it. So when if I have a panic attack one day, I can come through it, but the very first instance, my brain is telling me, oh, see, like, you'll never be rid of this. You're always going to struggle. Therefore, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You shouldn't even hope to have a normal life. You can spiral really quickly, can't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So what's some of the work that you do with people around the mindset? What is this inner work that people need to be doing if they're not already doing it?
Of course, definitely. So the agreeing is the hard part, and that's a part that comes after. But like I was saying before, being self-aware first and foremost is extremely important, because when we start listening to what we're saying to ourselves and what we're, just how what we're saying is making us feel, it's fascinating how far we can go with just that bit, just listening to what you're saying. And don't make it a bad thing. Don't make it, it's just you being fascinated with whatever it is that's going through your mind. So that the self-awareness part for me is extremely important, because I wasn't able to even process, like, even after the doctors said, you have anxiety disorder, I was like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, no. Why would you say I have that? So
yeah. Take it back.
So yeah, right. So it's not until I was able to step back, and with the help of a counselor, and a counselor who's also a coach, he helped me step back, and that's how I was able to figure out that I had this for so long and didn't even realize that's what it was. I just thought I had, a bad stomach. I just thought I had acid reflux or heartburn all the time, and depending on if I ate too much grease or something like that. So I was able to draw all the way back to that. And the crazy thing is, it's not like I had some, like you were saying, it wasn't some wild trauma that I had in my childhood or anything like that. It was just that I was always an open person. Like, I had this personality to where I didn't want to follow the crowd. And, I needed to balance that. And at 13, it was hard for me to stand up and be myself while still having friends and stuff like that. And that's where all of that came from. So my awareness and my ability to go back into myself and figure things out was very important in my inner work. And once I was able to see where the problem was, I mean, this was the past. It's not like I can fix it, change it, or anything. I just needed to see where it was and then walk from there. And when I say walk from there, I mean, accept who I am now as a person, right? Accept that this happened to me back then, but I was able to move forward and be who I am and embrace all of me as a person. And I'm okay with that now. And then, go from there to where, like you were saying, understanding that in the faith part of it, that I got this for a reason, right?
Yeah.
I got this for a reason, because I had one person, like, not even too long ago, tell me that, oh, listen to her.
Let's have her in. Oh, Bubba, did you wake up? Oh, I told you the interruptions would be on my end, didn't I?
No, you're fine.
Okay, Bubba.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me not too long ago that if I didn't go through and walk that journey, then I wouldn't be able to understand, where my clients are coming from. Yes, I would be able to understand them logically because I read books and stuff, but I'm able to put myself in their shoes because I've had this same experience, you know? So
Exactly.
she was telling me, she's like, this was a blessing in disguise for you because you were able to use it now to help other people.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that everybody that has anxiety is going to go, you know, become a coach or anything like that. But what I'm saying is to circle back to what you were saying on the faith side of it, is that everything that happens to us, even though we don't want to accept it at the moment, and like most people, most human beings won't accept it at that moment, but there's a reason. There's a reason things happen the way they happen, and there's a reason why you get the gifts that you get, whether they seem icky at the time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, they don't seem like great gifts. It's like, you know, you open that package up and you're like, really? Like, you couldn't have got me something better. But it's I completely agree. And you know, I had a realization a little while ago. Actually, it's going to sound like this is totally separate to what we were just talking about, but it's actually the same thing. And I was just having one of my days where I woke up and I was feeling frustrated because I wanted to be doing more of my work. And it was one of those days where I just had to be mum that day. I had all the kids around, and you know, the husband was out working, and so I was in that kind of duality of frustration. Like, I want to just shut myself away in the office and create my content and whatever, but I'm going to have to be a mum today. And that's, you know, not what I was feeling aligned to do. And then I had this realization that we, you know, the job that we choose to do is part of us. And especially if you're lucky enough to be doing something that you love, and if you feel like you're doing the thing you've been called to do, the realization that I had was, therefore, I don't have to be at work to be making a difference. I don't have to be in my office writing content or making posts or whatever to be making a difference. It was like, when you understand that it's you, then you understand that you get to have that impact wherever you are and whatever you're doing. What if your biggest struggle was actually your greatest gift? And what if everything you think is holding you back was actually propelling you towards the life you desire and were always destined to live? When I lost my voice as a professional singer, it definitely did not feel like a gift in any way. In fact, when I lost my voice, I lost my confidence, my faith, and my entire identity along with it. But what lay on the other side of that struggle was more clarity and fulfillment than I even knew I could hope for. And I want the same for you. I want to help you shift your perception around your biggest struggles so you too can step up and claim that life you've been dreaming about. The Confidence Academy Members Club is my monthly membership program where I share everything I've learned along my own journey, from anxious and stressed to confident and purposeful. I'm not saying you'll never be anxious again, but I'm saying this isn't who you are, and there is so much more available to you. Click the link in the show notes and join me today. I can't wait to watch you soar. So I had this thing of, well, you know, I could impact somebody by writing a really great post, but I could have just as profound an impact on, I could meet someone at the park while I'm pushing my daughter on the swing and just, you know, just saying one thing. And it doesn't even have to be a profound thing, but even just smiling at someone or telling them that they look nice or whatever, which I always try to do. And I think my husband thinks I'm weird because I'll literally chase someone down in the street to tell them they look great if I think they look great. Because I just think the world needs more of this, you know?
Yes, definitely.
And it is that realization. And so, you know, you made the point, not everyone's going to become a coach. Not everyone's going to become a counselor or a therapist or even specialize in anxiety necessarily. But your experiences give you the ability to empathize with other human beings.
Exactly.
And that's the gift. And that's, you know, we're all in this hot mess together. And like, you know, we're stronger together. No one's meant to do this on their own. And I just would say, you know, to anyone listening, never underestimate the power of your journey that you've walked. And even the things that you feel super ashamed of or sad about, you know, it's part of your journey, and you have the ability to to help somebody else, whether that's going to be in a professional capacity or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know so many people that have started to blog about experiences that they're having.
Yep. Yep.
And then they get messages from people saying, oh my God, like it's just nice to know you're not alone, you know?
Exactly.
And so I love that. Yeah, I really love that.
It's great to know you're not alone. And as you were talking, I was thinking, and this was even before I became even a counselor, let alone a coach. I was friends with a guy, and we were just strictly friends. And I was sitting with him one time, and he turned to me, and this was like I was maybe 20 or 21. I don't even remember. But he turned to me and he's like, Stephanie, you have no idea how calming your presence is.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, at the time it was just whatever, but later on in life, as I've heard that, like people tell me that in other settings or in different ways, I came to understand what he was saying. And it's the same thing that you were saying. I mean, just sometimes just sitting with somebody, you know, not even saying anything, just, you know, holding space for them is all they need, you know, to calm down. So
yeah, absolutely. And I love that you've said that, because I don't know if I've even shared this on the podcast yet, because it literally came to me this week. I was doing the washing up, you know, mundane task, and that's when I get all my best ideas and I get all my downloads, because I just think I'm bored to tears. So, you know, I think my guides just go, oh, we're here with some inspiration. And I was thinking about the fact that how I've always operated has been fun. Like I always gravitate towards fun, silliness, shenanigans. Like I'll always opt to be a little bit goofy or whatever. And there's definitely been times when I've looked at other spiritual people and I've seen how, you know, kind of serious they are and very focused. And then I've said to myself, well, you know, you're obviously not a very good spiritual person, because you're just, you know, I'm the person that, like, if I was sat in a room full of those people, I'd be the one trying to make everybody laugh.
Of course.
But the download that I got was there are different warriors on different paths, and there are warriors of peace, there are warriors of strength, there are warriors of joy. I just had this overwhelming feeling that I'm a warrior of joy. Like I have the ability to be peaceful sometimes, not often. I have the ability to be strong. And then further than that, I kind of, the download then went that, you know, we are a collective. And so I realized that the people I gravitate towards are the people that are very peaceful, very strong, because I've got the joy kind of taken care of. So I gravitate to the people that can fill me up where, do you know what I mean? And
definitely.
I just thought it was such a beautiful image, because that means that as much as you might need other people, you're as needed by them as well.
Exactly. And there's a balance. There's a, you know, the balance is so stark. And even between you and I, like you're saying, you're the one that's very goofy and stuff like that. I'm a cheerful person. Like I'm always smiling and happy, but I'm not like very goofy. And I think too that each person is put here and they have their own group of people that they're supposed to lead, you know?
Absolutely.
So the people that are going to be gravitating towards you might not be the same people that are gravitating towards me. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it that they will capture the message better from me, or they'll capture the message better from you. So
completely. Yeah, completely. And I love that as well, because of, especially in like the online space, people can feel like it's saturated, and you know, there'll be someone who's got a great idea and that might not take a step forward because they'll think, oh, but other people are doing it. And this is why it's crucial that you step up and you stand up for your own dreams, your own path, because no one can do it like you know. I've run my choir for years. It's nearly 15 years now, and I've said so many times I could literally hand the blueprint of that choir to anyone else in the world and it wouldn't be the same choir.
It wouldn't.
Because it's the energy and it, you know, this is, And this is what I really want people to get. I feel like this is such a huge part of my mission. And I know this is a huge part of my mission, is to wake people up to their own power and their own brilliance and their own worth. Like, you know, we all have something important to do here on the planet, whether you think that your job is important or not, you know. It completely is. And I, you know, the thing that breaks my heart the most is when people feel like they missed their chance, or it's too late, or their best years are behind them. I don't think that's a thing. I really don't.
That's not a thing. It's not.
I just think this has been such a great conversation to have, because I think, you know, on this podcast, I mean, we've been going now since 2017. So I think we've covered so many areas, you know, so many times. But you know, there's a lot of spiritual talk, and I love that. I'm all about that. But I do think, like you were saying, and I can't remember if you said this on this podcast or if it was before we went live, but you said that, you know, the spirituality, the woo-woo, the law of attraction, the manifestation, all of that is great, but people do need these practical steps. They need these practical, you know, to-do steps. And I was going to circle back and ask you, because you did say a little while back that, you know, you, after declaring you hadn't had a panic attack in a year, you then had one. The same thing happened to me this year. I was like, I got too cocky. God damn it. But, you know, the thing that I realized from my own experience this year was how much quicker I was able to process what I was going through.
Exactly. Yep.
And, you know, and it's not, I didn't avoid it. I wasn't able to sidestep it, but I was able to go through it, and I was able to go through it and not feel afraid, you know, and not feel like it, like you said, like I didn't make it mean anything.
Exactly.
It very much felt to me at the time as well, like, again, like you said, that it was almost like a reminder, like, this is how people are feeling when they come to you. Like, let's just remind you of just how crap it feels, you know, when somebody's in that place. But you mentioned that you'd had that, you know, that panic attack. And then you mentioned that you are able to manage it now. And there were some steps that you took. So I'm interested to know what they were, because I know there'll be people listening that might have thought, what did you do? What can I do? Because not everybody has that. Yeah, not everyone has that ability. And I know that that's going to be a question that we'll get probably.
Yeah, definitely. So quick disclaimer, my worst attacks have been in stores, like grocery stores, clothing, any store that I go into. And for the longest time, I just avoided. Like, I would go into a grocery store when I absolutely didn't have a choice. You know, I just avoided it instead of walking in and taking the bull by its horn, so to speak. But eventually I realized that wasn't practical. I had to live. So I started doing the few tools that I have. And this is where the external part comes in, for me at least. And it's twofold. It's my mindset, like me talking to myself, because again, self-awareness, I can tell when it's coming on. Like I have those subtle feelings in my body that tells me, okay, Stephanie, it's happening. Like it starts very small and it grows, and I can really tell from like when it's very tiny. And that's when I start talking to myself and telling myself, like you said, okay, Stephanie, you're starting to have a panic attack, and it's okay. You know, okay.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to take some deep breaths. We're going to see what's going on, what's causing it. And so it's all of this happens very quickly. Like, it's a matter of seconds, but this is all the things that goes through my mind, and I'm acknowledging. I acknowledge that I have it. I decide what is causing it, and then I start to, you know, cure it, quote unquote. And when I say cure, I mean to like just come down on that high. And coming down on that high for me at this point, because I get it at the very, you know, infancy of like the very beginning of the attack, I can take a few deep breaths and just tell myself that it's going to be okay. You know, I'm safe. It's okay. You know, I'm just buying groceries. No harm, no foul. talking to myself like that and taking deep breaths until I feel like I'm calm enough to keep going. And there's always a residual feeling, after that happens to me. Like it's like either in my chest or in my head. Like I feel like it's not hurt, it's not painful, but it's just a little bit heavy.
Yeah.
And I know that's how I know that it was there, But really, my thing is just to acknowledge, to accept, and then take deep breaths.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful and so simple. And I think it's such a great system for someone, especially if anyone listening is in the throes of panic attacks right now and is feeling like they can't, find a way to manage them. Because I don't know what it's like where you live, but here mental health services they were stretched anyway, and now it's the pandemic.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I get calls like, because I don't do insurance, I only do private pay now. So I get calls all the time and I have to turn them down because in the throes right now, it would be way too hard for me, so much bureaucracy for me to start taking insurance. I'm like, no. But it's everywhere, girl. It's everywhere.
Yeah, completely. And I think what you said about recognizing the signs, I think that all stems from first acknowledging that that's what you're dealing with, because all the time you're trying to tell yourself, oh, it's not this, it's not that, it's not so bad. You're not acknowledging, you're not admitting that that's what it is. And then you're going to miss those nuances. You're going to miss those signs. And, I know the one I had a couple of months back, it did escalate, actually. It escalated quite quickly from something quite small. And it did feel a bit like it blindsided me. But I was exactly the same. It was just that it's that acknowledgement. The only thing I can liken it to is when I was having Sophia, and it was the moment I'd been asking for the epidural, and it was the moment I realized that we were too late for the epidural, and I was gonna have to go through
yes, that happened to my sister. I was able to get my epidurals, but that happened to my sister, and I watched and I could see the pain.
Yeah, do you know, like with my first child, I got the epidural because it had happened to my friend, and I literally got in the hospital and was like, right, we're getting an epidural. And they were like, we don't need to ask for it yet. I said, no, you need to ask for it now, because my friend didn't ask for it and she didn't get one and I want one. So the first one I got, with my second child, there was no hope. He came so fast, like there was no time.
Oh, wow.
And then with Sophia, I'd kind of thought I wasn't going to do it. And then, it got to the point where I was like, oh, I've remembered how much this hurts. I think I might just ask for one.
And it was too late.
But it was too late. Like it was literally asking for it, suddenly kicked everything into overdrive. And it was just that feeling of, oh, okay, well, we're doing it. Like there's no choice. I've got to go through. It's through the fire. I can't go around it, over it, under it. I'm on now. I can't get off this ride. It's the same feeling I get on roller coasters. I panic all the way up the slow incline. And then there's just this moment where it's like,
there's nothing else I can do.
You surrender, don't you? You just surrender and you go, okay, I'm on the ride. And it is that sort of feeling. And so I think the biggest, what's the word I want to use? Like it's like an arrow. Like if you had a bow and arrow, and your arrows were your ability to manage your anxiety or whatever, I think the biggest arrow you can have in your pack is that it's just that acknowledgement and that acceptance of, we're doing this, but we're going to come through it. Like yes, you're going to have this panic attack. It's coming. You're not going to avoid it, because actually the more you try to avoid it, the worse that panic attack is going to be.
The worse it's going to get.
And the more afraid
those
of it,
days.
Totally. The more afraid of it you are, the more afraid you are, the more you try to run. I've used the analogy so many times, but I'll say it again. I liken it to, I'm a fan of The Walking Dead, which is the zombie thing. And I think the people in that program that get taken down by the zombies the worst are the ones that are just freaking out and running away. the ones that survive are the ones that, yes, they're afraid, but they stop and they turn and they look at what they're dealing with. And they're like, okay, it's a zombie. That's terrifying. But now I'm looking at it, I can see that actually it's not really going in a straight line and its head's
Yep.
kind of hanging off. And, you know, knowledge is power. And when you're not afraid of something anymore, you can
Yep.
see your solutions. You can see what
Yeah.
you need to do to come through it, you know?
Exactly.
It's so powerful. Well, I've loved having this conversation with you, and I think it's going to have been a really, really needed conversation for a lot of
Yes.
people.
Yes. I loved having a conversation with you as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that your work is usually in workspaces. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
lots of people aren't at work right now, but, you know, for the people who are even work, like, even if it's not got to the point of panic attacks, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
anxiety can be on so many levels.
Oh yeah.
What would you say to anyone listening who is feeling like they're losing the battle with anxiety at the moment? If they're feeling like it's, like you mentioned this earlier, you know, you
Mm-hmm.
can manage it, or it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of takes you along for the ride. What would
Mm-hmm.
your advice be to someone who feels like their life is being consumed by it right now?
Sure, sure. That's a really great question, and I got goosebumps because I remember when I was feeling that way, where I was feeling like literally couldn't do anything because everything I did, I was, in those throes. So what I would say to anybody like that, and what I have said, is that, take it one day at a time, first of all. Don't make it um, something that don't make it a death sentence. I know that
Mm.
sounds grim, but that's what comes to me. Don't make it a death sentence for yourself.
Mm.
Acceptance is key
Mm.
to healing. And I know we've said several times that we can't overcome it or cure it, but we can heal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as you and I speak, you can tell that we're both healed from
Yeah.
the whole process of anxiety, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So accept it so that you can start the healing process. And once you're healed, then things fall into place where you wouldn't even believe, and it's easier to start managing it. It's
Mm.
easier to start, accepting and being, allowing it to be a part of you.
Yeah, I love that. It's actually a full circle thing, isn't it? Because I think so many
Mm-hmm.
people carry their anxiety or whatever mental health issue it might be,
Mm-hmm.
they carry it as their identity. And I guess what we're saying is it's not who you are, but it's
It's
part of your journey, right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
deny that part of you is to deny a part of your journey, and your greatest lessons are going to lie there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
sounds so cliche to say it, but you know, my experience of anxiety still to this day, if I feel like I'm having one of my, I call it a wobble day. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a wobble day, now my first question will be, how am I not showing up for myself?
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? What am I not doing that I should be doing? Or what am I
Mm-hmm.
not saying that I should be saying? You know,
Or what
it's,
am I not saying no to? Because that grocery store
yes.
one that I told you about before, when I
Mm,
dug deep enough, I realized that I was taking on something that I really didn't want to,
yeah.
just because I thought was what I should do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and at the time, it was like, oh, okay, it's no big deal. It's just a 2-day thing. I'll be in and out or whatever. But
Mm,
in my core, I was
mm.
stressing. I was
Yeah.
stressing.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I still stand by the fact, and I know anxiety is a medical thing and it's a chemical imbalance and yada, yada, yada,
Mm-hmm.
but I still stand by the fact that my anxiety is worse when I'm out of alignment. And like you just
Oh
said,
yeah,
it could,
definitely.
it could just be like you said, oh, it was only a 2-day thing, or it's just an afternoon at this person's
Mm-hmm.
place. There's a thing your soul is supposed to be doing. If
Mm-hmm.
you are trying to do something that is taking you away from that thing, it will
Mm-hmm.
show up as anxiety in your body.
Yes, it will.
This is how your soul experiences it, because you are a
Mm-hmm.
soul in a human vessel right now, and the human
Mm-hmm.
experience is anxiety. That's what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like. That's what it
Yep.
is.
That's
um
exactly what it is.
I have a perfect journal prompt for anyone that likes to journal, or if you don't
Mm-hmm.
like to journal, maybe give it a try. And this is something that I you know, I think I learned it from Katrina Ruth, actually, one of my favorite coaches that I shout out all the time on this podcast. But it was probably a paraphrase of something that she'd given me. But it was basically asking the question in my journal, what would I be choosing to do if there was nothing I had to do? So if there was no one I could disappoint, if there was no one I could let down, if there was no sense of failure, if I literally couldn't get it wrong, and if I was absolutely guaranteed an outcome, what would I be choosing to do in this moment right now? Because I think when I first asked myself that question, I realized that probably 99% of all of the things I'd taken on were because they were either for other people, or they were stemming from this idea that if I didn't do it, that person was going to think badly of me. It was like, how am I going to be perceived? How am I going to be seen?
Exactly.
What's that person going to say about me? Like, that's going to cause you anxiety. I've been in whole jobs for that reason. And it just shows up like anxiety. You feel out of place. You feel, you know, and by the way, it can feel terrifying to make the decision as well. Like, you know, I was doing a job once that I would say was probably 98% what I should be doing. It wasn't far away from it. It wasn't like I was doing nothing like it. You know, it ticked so many boxes, but the bottom line was it wasn't right for me anymore, and I knew it. And I was trying to ignore that little nudge. I was trying to ignore what I knew deep inside.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah, because I just thought, oh, it's going to be so messy. If I give this up, I'm going to disappoint all these people. I was worried that I wouldn't make the money. I was worried that, you know, what people would say. I was just worried about absolutely everything.
Everything.
And it was only
for you.
Except for me, yeah. And then it was like, well, okay, but if none of that was a thing, so if you knew you could make the money, and if you weren't going to disappoint all those people, or even if you are going to disappoint some people, but do you know what, they're going to be okay.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Because this is a huge thing for me. I've told myself so many times that, oh my God, the whole world is going to collapse if I make this decision or if I don't make this decision. Like, you know, it really isn't that big of a thing. People get over things, you know, and
yeah, definitely.
You know, in that case.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm a huge advocate of doing what makes you happy first before even thinking about other people. And by all means, I mean, you and I both have kids, and we both have spouses and all that. And obviously, you know, you are going to make decisions that are beneficial to your child and to your spouse, or so on and so forth. However, you have to understand the difference between being selfish and putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And a lot of anxiety that I had before is exactly what you were talking about, is what is so-and-so going to think, or how am I going to hurt so-and-so? And until I released that and put myself first, and those panic attacks kept coming because I wasn't in alignment, as you said.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a lot of things for other people as opposed to, you know, putting myself first. Yeah. And so that is something that I preach a lot, you know, put yourself first, especially as women, as moms, we tend to not put ourselves first.
Yeah. And do you know what? Something I've realized, and only recently, no one's going to come and do it for you.
Nope.
You know, something I would find myself saying a lot, especially through lockdown, was, there's never any time for me. I can never do the things I want to do. Yada, 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 yada. Okay, well, cool. But, you know, you have to stand up and tell people this is, you know, set your boundaries. Say to people that, no, that's not okay. Like, I'm not prepared to do that. That's not going to work for me. You know, it's not easy as a mum, but it is possible. And it's also remembering that our children learn from us. And there's nothing wrong with setting some healthy boundaries and giving yourself some time, because we all need that balance. Like, we've all got the ability to push and be productive and do all the things, but we need to restock our tank at some point. At some point, you've got to stop and go, okay, what do I need for me? So right now, even this podcast is for me. You know, I said to you, didn't I, at the start, but everyone's asleep. I've now got a 2-year-old asleep on me. I've got my fairy lights on. I'm wrapped in my blanket, and this is me my time. Absolutely. Just let us know, because I know that you very kindly said there was a free download that people could get. So just talk very quickly about what that is for people so that I can...
Oh, sure. So I have a free download, which I am probably going to have to send you the link of, Lily. And then I don't know if you can just put the link down in the podcast, because I don't have it from the top of my head right now, but it is a quick, I think 6-step tip to manage anxiety and stay in joy. So it's one of those things that I love to give to people, because it's just really quick things that we can do right now in this minute to boost up our joy and lower our anxiety and worry.
Yeah. Perfect. And we will definitely, if I grab that link from you, we can definitely put that in the show notes. I will send that
to you.
And how can people find you? If they want to find out more about your work or follow you, are you on social media? Let people know how they can find you.
Yes, definitely. So I am on Facebook at Stephanie Zamor Coradin, and I will spell that for you. It's Stephanie, Phanie, and it's Zamor, and my last name is Coradin. I post there rather regularly, and I do lots of mindset tips on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, and the handle there is Luxy Mindset, which is way easier. Luxy Mindset. And on there, I do more workplace anxiety and corporate anxiety management there. And I'm also on Instagram, and the handle there also is Luxy Mindset. And that's a mix of both individual anxiety and workplace anxiety, which is also individual, but you get the drift.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Thank you. And we'll definitely put those links down below. And everyone listening, we want to know what you thought. As always, get in touch, ask your questions, give us your take on it. Like I'm definitely up for being challenged. I know that sometimes these conversations might feel triggering. You know, if you're in the throes of anxiety right now and you hear two people talking about the fact that you can manage it, and you're sat there going, there's no way, then I think it's definitely something to pay attention to. Come at me with your comments, because I love to have these conversations, and I bet there's nothing you can think that I haven't thought myself previously. It's how I wound up doing what I do. You know, it's that it is that curiosity, and you know, that ability to ask questions. And I learned a long time ago, the things that trigger me, actually, again, they carry a lot of lessons. There's something to be learned in there, you know, something to pay attention to. And it either means that you're going to learn something that might change your mind, or it's just an opportunity to drop deeper into your beliefs. Like that could be a thing as well.
Definitely.
All of which is very empowering, and definitely something that I would recommend doing. So get in touch. You guys know where to find me. I'm in the Facebook group Wake Up Rise Up. You can email me at lilybadcock@gmail.com. And Stephanie, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lily. It's been fun.
Awesome stuff. To everyone listening, remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. I'll be back again soon with another episode. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye. Boom! That's another one in the bag. My heartfelt thanks to Stephanie for this awesome conversation, and to you, the listeners, for being on this epic journey with me each week. I'd love to know what you thought of this episode, so do please reach out with your questions and comments. You know it makes my day, and I reply to every message I get after doing a little happy dance, of course. I'll be back again next week with another incredible guest, and I will be live on Thursday over on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook for the live chat show, so I hope that you'll join me then. And if you love the podcast and would like more support as you step into that life that you've been dreaming of, then why not join me in the Confidence Academy Members Club? Oh yes, we've rebranded. So it was previously called Evolution Online. I've decided to bring it in line with the podcast itself, so it's now called the Confidence Academy Members Club. The link is in the bio, along with everything else we mentioned in this episode. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, whatever you're doing, and look after yourselves. Massive love.